Hello and a very warm welcome back to Widowed AF. I'm your host, I'm Rosie Moss, and joining me today, I am delighted to welcome to the podcast, all the way from Portland, Oregon, Leslie Harter-Berg. Did I say your name right, Leslie?
Yes, you
Yes,
did. Nailed
I'm
it.
terrible with names, absolutely terrible. I practiced beforehand just for you.
You did wonderful.
So Leslie is here partly because you're a fully paid up member of the club, but also because you have a book out at the moment. And the title of this book is You're So Strong, on Grief and Letting Go of My Favourite Compliment. I love that because we know people mean well. We've said it ourselves, but we also know that, oh man, I don't want to be strong today, right?
No. And people love saying that one. I don't know. Do you got that one a lot?
Oh, all the
You're
time.
so strong.
And I think somewhere I read that it was said to you before you'd even had chance to process that your husband had died. You're like, I don't know if I'm strong yet. Give me a chance, right?
Exactly. Before I even done anything.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I didn't do a thing, and everyone was like, "You're so strong."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Wait, I haven't done anything yet."
And I categorically was not strong in any shape or form. I was a gibbering wreck. I mean, I've done some strong things and I've got stronger, but right back there at the beginning, strong is not the word I'd have used to describe myself.
No, same, falling apart.
Yeah. So, Leslie, before we talk about the book, which I definitely do want to, would you tell me a little bit about Ryan and how he died and kind of who you guys were before all this happened as well? Because it's nice to know what your relationship was like, what your family was like.
Yes, I love talking about Ryan. So
Same. We all love talking about them, don't we?
I know. Ryan was the best. I wish he was on this podcast instead of me, but there's just no universe where that works out, where Ryan's
If
on
I
the
manage to
Widow
do
podcast.
this, then I'll let you know, because that'd be one hell of a
Okay.
podcast, right?
Let me know if you found that. Yeah, so Ryan was this hilarious creative force. We met at work. We were coworkers at a children's media company, and we created animated and kid apps and kid educational videos together. And so we were like a writing partnership.
Mhm.
And then we actually ended up starting a business together. So we really did everything together. It was like there was no Ryan without Leslie. We were
Yeah.
best friends. And we went on vacation in 2019 to actually where I am right now. I'm in Palm Springs at a hotel.
Not the same hotel.
Exit sign. Not the same hotel. No.
So that's a step too far, right?
This is kind of funny. Like I come back every year around the day that he died, just to kind of have my own time in Palm Springs. So it's actually 7 years this week. Since he died on our vacation in Palm Springs. Yeah, so I'm down here.
Sorry, Leslie, I've got to just ask. I'm a nosy bugger, so I will keep asking you questions and breaking your flow in a really annoying way. But I'm just interested in this kind of almost like a pilgrimage back to where it happened. Have you done that every year? And do you do that by yourself, or do you take your kids?
I do it by myself. I want to take my kids. This year didn't work out because we're actually leaving town for spring break next week. But I think my kids are getting to the age where I'd like them to come.
Mm.
But I usually go by myself because I feel like we honor Ryan and we remember Ryan on his birthday, which is just a few weeks ago in March. He was 34 when he died. So we celebrated his birthday, and then 3 weeks later we came to Palm Springs. And so we usually have that day where I like bring in the kids and we celebrate Ryan, and it's all about him. And on this day, it's really about, I feel like it's about me and how I've changed and coming back to this place where my life changed forever. Palm Springs is so different than where I live. Palm Springs is like, it feels like I'm in another planet. So it does feel good to come back here. It's like quiet and you can see the mountains and the palm trees. And I sort of just take this moment to be like, wow, where have I come from?
Like a reflection. I love that. I think that's beautiful. What a lovely thing to do. And not a bad place to go. I'd have to go down to Dover in England, which is probably less scenic than Palm Springs, but I have done it. And like you, we tend to make a bigger deal of Ben's birthday in June, because I find on the day itself, I mean, my book came out on the anniversary this year, And in the lead up, I was thinking, what have you done? Why have you done that? But actually, it was great. It was a really good distraction. Yeah, I know. You do some strange things in widowhood, right?
I just feel like, okay, so you chose that. I
Oh, I
did not
chose that
choose for
date.
my book to come out now. I did not choose. When they told me the day, I was like, that is my worst time of year. I have a big X over the month of
Yeah,
March because between his birthday and when he had his stroke on April 1st, I just am like a wreck. And
yeah,
now I'm like in book mode. Look at me. Look at
yeah,
me. I'm just going so fast. And so coming here and having some time to slow down, I'm doing this, but then I'm kind of
yeah,
shutting down for a few days. I need it.
yeah.
I
I
need
bet
it.
you do.
I was like, oh, the
Yeah.
timing is not ideal, honestly.
No, and in hindsight, perhaps I could have picked a different. But for me, it felt some kind of symbolic. That it's been
Yeah.
8 years. Look how far I've come. Look what I've done with this trauma that happened. You know,
Mm.
I look how strong I am, Liz.
Yeah. You, Rosie, you are so strong.
You are the
So
strongest.
strong.
You are the
So
strongest.
strong.
But in the end, it was great because I had a launch party at the restaurant next door to my house, and we hired out a room, and there was loads of people, and it was just this wonderful sensation of being loved, and it was so powerful. And so
Mm.
actually, I'm quite glad I did it. But yeah, I really relate to that kind of idea of doing something on their birthday, because how is that date they died ever going to be a celebration for you, right? It's always going to
I
be terrible.
know. To me, it's, we're not using this day to talk about how amazing Ryan was. It's really just like how terrible
Yeah,
it is that he's gone. So I
yeah.
want to have that moment of always being like, no, he should be here.
You
And
want to
this is
wallow,
awful that
right?
this happened.
We're
Yeah.
allowed to wallow, and I think this is it. We're so busy and promoting the book or doing work and raising our children that we sometimes forget that we are allowed to wallow in it for a while, because it's
I
really
really
shit.
are. Yeah. Yes, it is. And if
Anyway.
you don't take time to wallow, the wallow will find you.
Oh yeah.
It'll
Oh
hit
yeah.
you at
It'll
the
get you.
worst moment. So I am married again, and honestly, this is for him too. That
Yeah.
I have this time to wallow as well. Because honestly, Rosie, so last week was my book launch, and we had this week of just so much. It's exciting, it's thrilling, surreal. We did the book launch party on Friday night, and it was just such a beautiful night. We had casseroles. We just did all the things. Okay, I go to bed that night. I have a terrible nightmare, like grief nightmare about Ryan, and I haven't had one of those in a long time. And I'm like crying in my sleep, and my husband's like holding me, and he was like, "I was wondering." I woke up to my husband holding me. I'm like shaking, crying. He's like, "I was
Mm.
wondering when this was all gonna catch up with you." Because
Yeah,
here
so
I
you
am
can't
talking
even,
about Ryan every day. I'm
of
just talking
course,
about him.
and you can't
And so
escape
it
it.
did. It found me. Yeah,
Even in your sleep, it'll get you.
I know.
So tell me, Leslie. I completely took you off the track there, but I really enjoyed it, so it was worth it.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
tell. No, it's I. This is the. I think this is kind of like the beauty in this podcast is there's no script or anything, so it can go anywhere, and I personally love it. It works really well for my brain, so and I hope other people do. So tell me then. Tell me you. So we know that Ryan died, or I know that Ryan died. It was during spring break. So just tell me a little bit about what happened.
Yeah. So we went to Disneyland with my sister's family and my family. We had 5 little kids.
Horrendous.
And Ryan and I had our own kids. We had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and then my sister had her 3 little ones. And we did 3 jam-packed days at Disney, like the whole thing, stayed in the park. We were exhausted. And so we planned to go to Palm Springs. We stayed at an Airbnb, not this hotel. We stayed at an Airbnb, and that was going to be our vacation from the vacation. And
That
so
was
we were
such a good
sitting by
idea.
the pool. Yeah, we are sitting by the pool. I had put my toddler down for a nap. And I just remember like finally being able to read and relax. And Ryan went in to get something to drink. And then he said, "Leslie, something's wrong." And those words changed the rest of my life. He had an aneurysm and a stroke by the pool, and he was taken to the hospital, and he was still talking when they took him into the ambulance, but he was intubated in the ambulance. And then by the time that I got there, they were giving him CPR, and he was they were just stabilized him, but he was gone. And then it was up to us when to take him
Oh,
off life support. And so we flew some people in because we're out of town. And so his family and my family came down and we said goodbye. And on April 1st is when he had his stroke. And then on April 2nd is when we took him off life support and he died very quickly from his stroke.
gosh, how awful! And I'm a sudden death widow as well, so I know the feeling of life literally just shattering, changing, shifting, whatever words you want to use to describe it. It's that moment in time, and you describe it as I'm not feeling well, something's wrong, and that's it. That's when your life splits into there, before and after. And that I'm picturing you on holiday. You're by the pool, you're having this lovely time, and then suddenly your husband's in an ambulance. What are you doing with the children at this time?
Yeah. So my brother-in-law drops me off at the hospital, and then he has to go back and be with the kids. There's all these kids that are swimming in a
Yeah,
pool. So
yeah.
they're playing
One disaster at
lifeguard
a time, please.
yeah. And so I'm, getting this news that it's catastrophic and he's probably not going to make it. And I'm trying to take in this scene, but I'm alone. And my sister's with the kids, and my brother was a kid. So I call my sister, she comes. And my other sister lives about 2 hours from here in Los Angeles. So she was able to, her friends and they came down, and her friends kind of handled the kids while we were all at the hospital, and kind of just kept them entertained, like swimming by the pool and all that. And we didn't really clue them in. It all happened very fast, so they found out after. But my kids were just enjoying themselves at the pool in the sun, which is really to
I
think
know.
about.
Last bit of innocence, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and I remember we came back to the Airbnb after he died, and everyone's like, "Well, when are you going to tell Whit?" And I was like, "I'd like to postpone this forever, thank you."
Yes, yes. If you don't mind, I'll leave that.
No mind. But my sisters were like, she had an 8-year-old, she had older kids, and she's like, they know
Yeah,
we've been
and you don't
going
want it
back and
filtering
forth.
down.
Yeah, we don't want them to tell my 3-year-old, because my 1-year-old, he was just a
Right?
little squawking toddler. Yeah. And so I had to take my 3-year-old into the room. And honestly, that was the worst moment of my life.
Yeah.
Telling he was 3.5. So he had a lot of memories, and he was, approaching 4. And he was confused. His first thing that he said was, "For real, Dad?"
Mm.
Almost like, kids play that someone has died.
Oh,
Um,
I can
and
relate to categorically the
yeah.
worst moment of my life, telling the children. And my children the boys were 7 and 5. So my 5-year-old, he's on the spectrum, so he reacted, quite
Oh,
confused. Didn't, it took him a little while to understand. But good Lord, the noise the 7-year-old made will haunt me forever. And like you, I had a baby, so kind of oblivious to it all. But you don't want them to grow up sad. You're like, how can this be how your life starts, right? You feel like
mm.
you're delivering this terrible blow, and even though it's not your fault, there's still an element of feeling, I can't protect you from this as your mother. Um, it's yeah. I mean, there's no other way to describe it other than the worst thing I've ever had to do.
Yeah, I remember I was trying to do a quick study of how to do this. Like,
Oh
how do
yeah, how do
you
you tell your child that dad has
communicate?
died?
Yeah, there's a chapter in my book that was like Googling how to tell your 3-year-old his dad died. And so a lot of the feedback is, don't try to skip ahead to, like, he's in a better place, he's in
Mhm.
heaven. Like, no matter what you believe about that, you need them to understand that they are not coming back, that
The finality of it.
their body stopped working. So I remember I was like, okay, I have to say his body stopped working. But right away you see those little eyes sinking and searching and trying to figure out what you're saying, and you want to take the pain away immediately.
Of
And
course.
I was like, heaven. I blurted out heaven, and I was like, no. I was like, wait, we're not supposed to say heaven right now. But I was like, I just wanted to you want to take it all
Of
away. And I just
course.
feel like I didn't do it perfectly, and we had to have that conversation so many times because he didn't understand. He didn't understand why his dad wasn't doing Cheerios with him in the morning. And it was, I just had to keep saying, like, remember his body stopped working. I like got really good at the body stopped working
And saying
talk.
it in that monotone way, because and do you find as well, somebody could say to you, I don't know, something about your children or their dad, and you'd just be like, yes, well, their dad died, da 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 da, and you it's almost got like a little sing-song rhythm to it because you're protecting yourself, right? You're almost
Right.
you're masking, I guess. You're masking.
Yeah. So for your youngest that was a baby, how does he or she handle grief now? What does that look like? Because it's been very fascinating with my one that was a baby.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting. So she was 6 months. She Tabitha, her name is, and she's now 8.5. So she was 6 months old. It's been 8 years, and initially, can you say that they're unscathed by it? I guess in a way she was, because I still got up to her every night. My parents moved in with me, so we kind of weaned her together, and she went to, she was taken out on walks, and there was lots and lots of effort, I suppose, to preserve her innocence and joy, because I didn't want her to be raised sad, right? We know they absorb what's
Yeah.
going on. What happened when she got to about 5 or 6, and she's at school, and she's also neurodivergent. So not started noticing a few perhaps trauma responses happening. And then, like you, I remarried and my marriage broke down. So that actually triggered what I would say is more of the more typical trauma response. So she's not been able to
Okay.
access school for a while. She's sleeping in my bed at the moment. She's very articulate and emotionally intelligent little girl. And she will say things, like, Mummy, I don't want you to ever love anyone again, have another boyfriend, because I can't have my heart broken either. Baby
Oh,
girl. I know. I know. So it's not been plain sailing, I would say, but I don't think it's going to ultimately define who she becomes. I think she feels the loss of a father figure hugely. She's got
yeah.
incredible big brothers. My oldest is nearly 16, and he is just the most loving young man. So she does have nice male role models, I guess. But yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because their life is set on such a different path so quickly, and it's just never going to be okay, is it?
No, I think I was surprised that my second born, he's so much more emotional and sensitive than my firstborn. So it was really interesting walking through the beginning of my worst grief moments with my 3-year-old who's very stoic.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about that a lot in the book, that I was almost offended for Ryan's sake that he wasn't more sad. I was
Mm-hmm.
like mad at Wit, my son, who is just a little kid, because I was like, Ryan's amazing. You should be more sad
Yeah.
at what
Why aren't
he
you devastated,
lost.
kid?
Because he was just very, he's still a kid. He wants ice cream. He wants to watch his shows. He just wants us to go play. And he's moved on. And that's how it felt.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh, my heart. My second born comes along, and he, at the time, he's just this wild, crazy toddler. But each year, as he develops language, he wants to cry and talk nonstop about his dad. So then it becomes this sort of like, okay, this is enough. This is too
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
much. And when I got remarried again, it's like anytime he gets in trouble, like he'll do something awful and he will start crying and going, I just dad died and I miss Ryan. And like, I miss Ryan, which is sad. He calls him Ryan now because I think it's confusing when you
Yeah.
have two father figures. So he'll just be like, I just miss Ryan. I'm crying about Ryan. And he uses it all the time. To my
Oh, yeah.
oldest son is always like, you don't even remember it. He gets
And then
mad.
they start an
And
argument about this. Yeah.
it sounds complicated for me because it's like, from the one hand, I wanted emotions for my kids so bad. I wanted them to feel for Ryan. And then now that I got it like all the time with his
Not
other
that much.
personality, I'm like, Les, please turn it down, please. So it's been really interesting. And to also know when it's real and when it's manipulation.
And
It's
this is the
hard.
thing. And mine did it too. The boys were the same. Anytime they were told off for anything, it was, well, I miss my daddy. And the other thing I was thinking as you were talking there, and funny enough, there's an anecdote in my book, and it's It's about how I told them, I'd shattered their worlds. I'd laid up awake all night waiting to deliver this awful news. And I sort of took some time, went and splashed my face, pulled myself together, and I come downstairs and they've got Harry Potter cloaks on, wands, they're playing. And I was like, why are you psychopaths? Like, your dad's died. You don't understand it, do you?
I mean, so real. Yeah, and you're
But I
just
guess
like
if you think about it, kids
rude.
can't get drunk or, go online shopping or do all the other crazy shit we do when we're grieving. So they have to compartmentalize it differently. And play
Yes.
is a lovely. And once, like, Ben died in a scuba accident, and I found them playing a diving computer game, and I was like, "What is wrong with you?"
Whoa.
I know.
Yeah, that's a
And,
lot.
and my daughter, because girls are a different level of emotional warfare as well. If she wants to piss me off, she says, "When I'm older, I think I might try scuba diving." Like,
Oh,
mm.
yeah, I don't have girls. Girls go for the jugular. They
Oh,
go for the
yes.
worst.
Oh, yes. I was
Most
so desperate for a girl.
painful.
Be careful what you wish for, hey?
I I know that because I grew up there's 4 sisters, so I grew up with all girls. And so having boys is just a completely
Phew.
different. Yeah, it's like a foreign language, but also they love mama. Like I can do nothing wrong.
Yes.
Where it's like my mom was like enemy number 1. She's like, bless her soul, she's the most amazing person, but we were so awful
Yeah.
to her in
I
our
rang my
teenage
mum
years.
from
So
the
bad.
delivery room in hospital, when I had my first baby. I rang her and I just said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry," because I now get it. Like, I get why you wanted to protect me. I get why you were strict with me. But we have a great
Well,
relationship now. I live in hope for me and my daughter. She's great. She's great.
amazing.
She's just me in miniature, and it's difficult to argue with a small version of yourself, right?
Correct. Oh, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. No, live boys are little foreign creatures to me. I'm like, who are you? What is going through your brain? Why are we destroying everything? It's
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Why is everything trash? I think that's it. I think they're kind of, it's a terrible way to put it, but I always think you're kind of on suicide watch with small boys because they're just trying to launch themselves into things, off things, under things the whole time. And then you get them through that bit, and they're quite loving. Like you say, they still
yeah.
want cuddles. They're a different beast. That they're all lovely. We're hashtag blessed.
Yes, mine are still in the suicide watch
Yes,
stage. Still. Still, it's still
you've got
going
time. You've got
10
time.
years in. So yeah, it's crazy.
So, Leslie, tell me a little bit, if you don't mind, about heading back home, because you've now got to go home from a holiday that you went on as a family of 4, and you've got to return as a family of 3. And that must have been really horrible.
Yeah, that's also a big traumatic moment in my story. What's interesting is flying with a 3 and a 1-year-old is so hard, even if you don't have all this grief and dead husband energy. And I had my sister
Dead
and my
husband
parents
energy.
with me. I had my sister and like all my nieces and nephews were all in a flight together, but we are all traumatized together. I just have this vivid memory of the stroller had to get broken down in TSA to go through the security, and I just couldn't do it. I just stood there. I was so numb. And the agent's like, you need to break down your stroller. And I said, I can't. Like, I made them do it. I just couldn't function, really. And it was really weird. Sudden death is already so weird, as you know. It takes a while for your brain to catch up that they were there and now they're not.
Gum.
But when someone dies on vacation, there's this extra layer of surreal to it.
Mm.
It really doesn't feel real because it's not connected to anything in your life. So it was strange going home and walking through my house and just returning with his suitcase. I kept his suitcase packed for 2 years. I didn't go through it. It was just very odd, and it took a while for my brain to catch up.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to return to Palm Springs, and I didn't get to the first year after because of COVID, because he died in 2018. So in 2020, I didn't get to go, but then I went in 21 because it did sort of sink in. in another way when I returned. Like, this happened here. It did actually happen. Like, this is the hospital where he was gone. But yeah, having him die on vacation and suddenly, it really felt like he just kind of disappeared, like just vanished, like went
Yeah.
poof.
Yeah. I get that. I get that. And that denial that we all know because we've studied those stages of grief, right? Because we wanted to excel at them and get through them as quickly as possible. So we know that denial is a factor. But and again, I don't mean to kind of compare to my story, but it's inevitable. But for me, there was the lack of a body. So the surreal aspect of it was, but how can he be dead? Like there's no body, there's no evidence that he's dead, but he is dead, and I have to accept it. And I think, although my story is kind of really out there, that it's a very common theme when it happens so suddenly. It's not, especially like when you're not even in your familiar surroundings, and then to come home to a house that smells like him, a bed that he slept in, and have to reprocess all of that all over again. Oh, tough gig.
Not fun. Don't recommend.
Do
That's
not
what I would
recommend.
say. We do not recommend sudden
Did
death.
you have family move in with you to help with the kids?
I didn't, but I did get a roommate. I
Did
had,
you?
yeah, it was funny because at the time, and my sister lived 5 houses down. My
Oh,
sister that
nice.
we went on vacation with, she was my neighbor. So I had sort of this built-in commune, and we called ourselves sister wives because he basically parented my children. He took out my garbage. He took out my bins, as you would say. He
Thank you.
killed spiders. He did all that, so he was like, yeah, the other husband. And then my sister kept saying, you should get a roommate. And I was like, that is the worst idea I've ever heard. I was remembering roommates at college and the
Labeling your
pre-married
food.
years. Yeah, the roommate notes and the meetings. I was like, absolutely not. But then an old friend from high school showed up randomly and was like, I'm in town. I live here again. She came over. She's so funny. And she was over hanging out. My sister was there and she was like, how's good? And I was like, do you want to live here? And she's such a blast. And poor thing, of course she had to say yes. Like my husband had just
Can't say
died.
no.
I'm sure my 2 little children that I'm like raising on my own. And so when she said yes, because I should have texted her to be polite so she could think about her response. She was
No
like,
room for
sure.
that.
So anyway, she was in, and I wrote a whole chapter of the book about her because she was an absolute miracle, just in that she showed up in practical ways. And honestly, she didn't know Ryan, and that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
She knew me, but she was this sort of neutral ground of like, I didn't feel like I had to perform my grief in any way for her or protect her from anything because she
Or
was
even
hurting
support
too.
her. Yeah. Because although,
Yeah.
we do want to support other people, you haven't always got the space or the capability. It's so consuming for yourself.
Yeah. And you have all these beautiful people around you that are hurting too with the loss. And it becomes a lot to figure out how to navigate how your loss ranks and what you can say and what you can't say. And oh, they're having a breakdown right now. So I should be or I shouldn't be. And so it it's complicated. So it was really nice to have Lindsay as sort of this neutral ground. And honestly, just somebody to watch shows with after my
Yeah.
kids went to bed.
Because
To
that's when the
laugh with.
isolation hits, isn't it? It's sitting on the sofa. I used to just get lost in a bottle of wine on my phone. And even now, I'm terrible for it. I find it very difficult to just sit and be. Even if I've got the TV on, I'll still be on my phone because it's that keep distracted, keep distracted. And sometimes if one of my friends comes over, I'm like, just stay a little bit longer because it's lovely having somebody there with you. I miss that actually.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. And she honestly was just the right personality for it because she was so chill and relaxed. And I told her, I was going to get her married off. And that's when she would move out. And I did. I have not made her.
Did you?
So 2 years, she lived with me 2 years. And then she found one of my old childhood friends, kind of set them up, and they started dating, got married, and she moved out. And she's still, when I think about her, I cry because of what she was, the practical that she gave to me. Just And that she would make my kids smoothies. And at the time, they were living off of like granola bars and ramen.
Yeah.
And she was putting vegetables and fruit in their bodies. And it was just
Oh,
such a
so
miracle.
grateful. So
Yeah.
grateful for people like that. My mum, like I said, my mum and dad moved in with me. And whilst it came with its challenges, me and my mum both
Yeah.
quite strong characters, but she would buy these. I mean, it was all pouches for the baby. First baby, you're pureeing, aren't you? Second baby, you might do a bit. Third baby, it's right, it's like a pouch. And she'd feed her and, make the kids dinner. And, my dad taught the boys to ride bikes and things that, when you think about solo parenting, I think people think about the immediate aftermath and the shock and the sadness and all of this. But it's the day-to-day practicalities. It's just not having another adult in the house to put the bin out, to make a phone call, to stick some
Exactly.
dinner on, and just to have somebody there that's that one step removed from all the trauma who can just be with you. I think what a gift. What did you say her name was? Lindsay.
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 Little shout
Yeah.
out for Lindsay. Well done. That was good friendship.
Yes. And so our joke at the time, whenever she did something nice, I would always say, hey, if I ever write a memoir, you're getting a chapter. And so it's funny when I actually got this book deal, I was outlining and I was like, I don't really know where to put Lindsay's chapter. So I kind of shoved it in there.
You made a promise, right?
But it's been fun talking to people because people really love that chapter, because I think a lot of people that are coming to the book that haven't experienced a loss want to know what actually is helpful. And so
Absolutely.
that Lindsay, there was so many people that showed up for me, but Lindsay kind of serves as like a symbol
Yes.
in the book of what everyone did. Because I'm not going to just write a book and list everything.
We'd have
A
to do a
big
whole book, right? Another one.
yeah, a big thank you card to everybody. I like Lindsay is the symbol of what you guys all did. Of just the practical ways that people show up and how profound that is.
Be more Lindsay. That's the answer, isn't it?
Just be Lindsay, guys. It's not that hard.
So you mentioned that you are remarried, and I know from the book and doing a little bit of, professional research, because, I do, that you have a little boy together. So tell me how that came to be. I mean, not the details. I know how that happens, but how did you guys meet?
Well, details of that are actually quite funny, because I was like, we're having a baby now, because I didn't want a big gap between my youngest and my new. I didn't want it to feel like this is the old family and this is the
Yes.
new family. So I was like, we need to do this now. We met very soon after Ryan died. It's a little scandalous, but don't worry, we didn't date yet. So we met 2 months after
No judgment
he
here.
died. He's an architect and he had just flipped a house, and I make videos. That's what Ryan and I did together, and I still run the business without him. So I was making a commercial and we filmed in one of his new remodels. And so I met him there. And then a couple of nights later, he was at this backyard taco night at my sister's house, and he was sort of following me around. And I was like, what's happening? I'm like I'm a single woman. Like he was like talking to me and my kids were there, which was really surreal. I'm like cleaning up my toddler, and he's like asking me about my life. And I was like, this is very strange. But I was also very lonely and wanted to touch somebody quite badly.
Widow's fire. There's a chapter on that in my book about that need for human connection, right?
And I was like, yes, let's go. But everybody in our life that sort of knew him was like, knew me was like calling him off, like, absolutely no, which I was quite upset with at the time, because I was like, I need this. But they were probably wise to do that, because I was just ready to like use him and lose him,
Yeah.
And everybody was like, so no, her husband just died. She's not in a healthy place. And then they were also to me like, no, what are you doing? No, this is not healthy. And but my sister was like on my team. She's like, everyone else is wrong. You need a make out session with this guy. You go for it. Anyways, he stopped DMing me, and like he stopped his little pursuit and he started dating someone else, someone who didn't have, a dead husband and
energy.
2 kids. So rude. Yeah. Someone without dead husband energy. No. Okay. So he dates somebody else, and then I can't get him out of my head. And what was funny at that party, he offered to remodel my kitchen for free. widow
Oh,
perks,
hello.
He was
Sold.
like, yeah, he was like, I would love to design it for free. He was trying to do something nice, for the widow. And so anyway, we started dating somebody else, and I was like, okay, can we still like use him for my kitchen, or is that off the table? Was that just part of the package of like going on a date? And everyone's like, no, absolutely. So I called him up to do the kitchen, and he was dating the entire time. We remodeled my kitchen. So it was all business and professional, but I always like did my makeup,
No
just in
robe.
case, just in case, like, oh, you
Nice.
caught me. No, it's not a bad time. Okay. So he'd come over, but he was like, strictly, he was no longer
Strictly
asking me
business.
about my life and stuff. Yeah. So then a year and a half goes by. And so I'm like 2 years out. Ryan had been dead for 2 years. I'd gone on like a couple of dating app dates, and I decided I wanted to do my bathroom, but I was going to pay for it. I was like, I want to hire you. You don't have to give, I know that it's been a while now. You don't have to give me anything free. And so he does my bathroom, and in the middle of the bathroom remodel, he breaks up with this girl that he's been dating for so long. And so he comes over to bring tile, and he just stays for 4 hours. And he starts like talking with my kids. And I was like, wait, I never wanted my kids involved in dating. What's happening? And he's like talking to me, and we're like doing Play-Doh together. And I like, what in the world is happening? And so that was the kind of the start of him showing up and kind of lingering, but he never asked me out, and I was going crazy. And so I hung out with another widow, and she was like, listen, she was remarried, and she's like, you're a widow, you have kids, you have to ask him out because you're intimidating. And so I actually asked him out. And then 1 year later, we were engaged.
Beautiful.
And a couple months after that, we were married. And then I was like, we're having a baby immediately. So then we
Literally, right
had
there, right then.
a third boy. God didn't want me to have girls, I guess. So another boy, and I'm done now. So, anyways, I wanted to have a kid as quickly as possible, but Saul has been such a beautiful gift. And having Reese, really, it was surreal. Again, I've said surreal so many times, but
I hadn't noticed.
that is the whole experience. You're kind of out of body a lot of times. Like, what is happening? How does this baby exist?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This baby only exists
Because your
because
husband
Ryan
died.
died. And so
Yeah.
to love a baby that comes from a second marriage when you're a widow, it feels like, oh, I can no longer wish for Ryan not to have died. It like, erases this
Gosh.
life. It becomes very complicated. So my book sort of ends with that thought of holding both. You have to learn to hold both the good and the beautiful, but still acknowledge the awful, and be able to make space for both.
Yeah.
Um,
I can remember my daughter actually when we were a blended family, and she would say, you know, I'm really sad that my daddy died, but if my daddy hadn't died, then we wouldn't know John and his daughter. And I can't get my head around that. So how do you explain that to a child? I'm interested to know how your blended family works. What your kids call it's Solomon, is it?
Solomon, yeah.
So what they call
Solomon.
him, and how that kind of works for you guys as a unit.
Yeah, it's complicated. The first year, everyone always asks, do they call you dad? To
Hmm.
him, like all the time. Do they call Saul dad? And I was like, we just started this whole
Yeah, yeah.
thing.
Give him a chance.
I know. And I never wanted to put pressure on my kids to call Saul dad. And part of that is because I love Ryan so much, and he's
Hmm.
their dad. So there's part of me that was like, as Ryan's best friend, I want to make sure their kids know him as dad.
Yes.
But for my kids' sake, they need they this is their father figure that they'll
He's the
have
dad role in their life,
for
right?
most of their life. Yeah. And for Solomon's sake, he is doing a hugely sacrificial thing of becoming an adopted father. And so this huge role deserves a name. And so we actually came up with Pop. So they call him Pop
Nice.
because that's actually what Solomon calls his dad. So
It's what we
that's
call my
really
dad.
fitting for him. Oh, okay.
Proper.
So but we never force the kids to say it. I just started calling him that. So I would be like, do you guys want to get this for Pop? And they just kept calling him Saul. And then one day, my oldest decided he was going to go for it and call him Pop. We never asked them to call him that. They kind of decided on their own. And then the younger one, it took a bit longer to call him that. And so now they both call him Pop. And it's very second nature, but it was tricky at the beginning. I remember my therapist is actually a widow,
Oh,
a
wow.
widower. He's a widower and he married a widow. And
Oh
so
my, you've
they
got the skills
combined,
then.
they combined 6 kids. So he had 2 adopted sons and he had his 4 kids. And I would get kind of frustrated. Like, why is anyone putting pressure on me to like have the boys call him dad? Why does Saul care? I would get kind of frustrated because I just was so worried about the boys and all
Mhm.
this change. And he goes, I've lived both. I've lived in your shoes where you have someone coming in trying to parent your kids and you're like crossing your arms and you're like, don't do that. Those are my
Yeah.
kids. He's like, I also have lived on the other side of it. I've been in Saul's shoes where I'm trying to parent these kids that are not my bio kids. And he's like, Saul has it way harder. That's what he told me. And it was sort of eye opening. He's like, as someone who's lived in both, like it is way harder to try to bond and parent and know how to navigate kids that are not your bio kids. And that really helps me empathize with Saul. And I was like, if we're to make this blended family work, we can still honor Ryan and make sure we have these moments where the kids know their bio dad. But we also need to honor Saul and figure out how this father figure becomes like solidified for both of them. And it's been beautiful. It took a while. We're 4 years in now, but it hasn't been super easy.
Tell me about then having a third baby, a baby that's yours and Sol's, and how did the boys take to that? Were they excited? I mean, the sibling envy anyway, I think, when a new baby comes along, but how were yours?
No, they are obsessed with
Are
him.
they?
They loved him and they still loved him. Like because of the age gap, he's just like a little treasure to them. Even though he's 3 now, he's like a little annoying 3-year-old that has these tantrums. And they just love it. They think it's hilarious. And they ask for more kids all the time. And like you said, just like what your daughter said, my son, Rory, will always think, process out loud and be like, man, I don't know, like if daddy didn't die, we wouldn't have Reese. And he starts like crying just thinking about that because he loves Reese so much. And so, yeah, they get the whole complicated mess too. But when Reese was born and I sort of saw how my boys were like so into him, I call Reese the glue
Yeah.
because,
That's
he
making me
has
quite
their
emotional.
blood. Yeah, he has their blood and he has my blood and he has Saul's blood. So he brings us all together. A lot of pressure for that little one. But he really has done it. He's risen to the occasion. Like he's really glued us all together. It's
And
been beautiful.
I used to say that Tabby was the cherry on the cake. I had this perfect 2 healthy children, and then we had our third one, which is always a roll of the dice, isn't it? When you've had healthy
Yeah.
children, you think, "Gosh, what if something happens?" And I used to say to her, "You were this innocent little party in all of this. You were joyful, and we watched you learn to walk and talk and do all the things that babies normally do." And that brought us immeasurable joy. And I think that sounds just like what baby Reese did, just kind of blended you all as a family. How gorgeous that you were able to do that. That's lovely.
Yeah. I'm very grateful for Reese.
So tell me then, Leslie, how did the book come to be? Let's talk about this book because you've got 3 pretty young children. You're widowed, you're working, you're running a business, weddings, all of this stuff going on, and somehow you wrote a book. So just how did it come to be?
Yes. Whenever someone says all those things, I just get very tired thinking about it. Yeah, I'm
I
very
don't
tired.
know. Adrenaline.
Um, yes, I've always been a writer. So Ryan and I met as writing buddies, as writing partners, and we would go and work on our own little size passion projects before we ever started dating. When we were friends, we would get together and write. And I'd always wanted to write. And I just also know that you kind of have to be a big deal to get a book deal. So I never went for it. I never tried to pursue writing in that way because I always was like, oh, when I get to a stage one day, slowly but surely, where I have this audience or this platform, then I'll write a book. But I started just sharing online, as you do when you're a widow. After Ryan died, just posts with long paragraphs about kind of what I was going through and my thoughts on things, a little bit funny, a little bit irreverent. And this agent followed me, and she said she was really always taken by my words, but she didn't want to be creepy and be like, you want to write a book right after he died? So she said, I'm just going to wait and see if she ever mentions writing a book. And so it wasn't until I got married again and Saul took my kid out for the weekend. And I was shocked. I was like, you're just going to take them camping? Like, they're going to be with a dad camping and I'm just going to be alone. I don't have to arrange childcare. It was very strange.
God. Heaven.
And so I made a joke on Instagram. I'm like, what should I do with all this time? Should I write a memoir? I just wrote that. And then she kind of jumped on that. She was like, hey, have you ever thought about writing a memoir? I'm an agent. She's actually in Paris. And I said, well, yeah, but I know that because I've worked with other people on their book. Like I've done ghostwriting before. I was like, I know what it takes to get a book deal and I don't got it. And she said, there's still a place for writing where writing gets the book deal, not just the platform. So I was so grateful for her. She just believed in me. And so I was like, well, this is what I wrote. Well, my husband I had written chapter, exactly the first chapter. Not much has changed. The prologue of the book. And she said, let's do this. And so I was ready to go. I had gotten pregnant, right after I got married. So I was pregnant, but I had all this like nesting energy. Like I need to write this proposal and get this out before I have the baby.
Yeah.
And she was like, whoa, slow down. So what I learned is that the book world goes very slow. So I wrote a proposal and she was like, oh, we're not going to pitch this until next year. My proposal. And so I just had to wait around for a year. I wrote some more sample chapters. And so the next winter, when my baby was 1, she pitched it, got a book deal. And then it's like, once you get the book deal, they're like, okay, your book's going to come out in 2 years. So from the moment I was pregnant, now I just celebrated my 3-year-old's 3rd birthday. My baby turned 3. That's how long the whole process took. And so it was so fun to write, but it's also about the worst thing that ever happened to me. So it was complicated. Like I always have wanted to write a book, but I never thought my first book would be about it.
No, in fact, at the book launch, I did a little speech, just so I don't like the sound of my own voice, so it was very brief. And I sort of, thanked my mum and dad. And I said, when I was a little girl, my mum used to make me these tiny little books. I used to like to write tiny, tiny little books and probably shouldn't have to do too many words. And, I said, I've always wanted to write. I lost myself in books. That's always where I wanted to be. And I never had the confidence to go for it. And then somehow I've written a book and it's because my husband died. And that's a real kind of like, I want to be so happy and celebrate this. But
I know. It's not the book that you wanted to write.
No.
But when you love writing, it still does feel like, oh, it's the book I get to write.
Exactly.
And what's interesting about being a widow is that, I don't know, I didn't find it traumatizing to write. I just did a Substack about it. I didn't find it traumatizing because I actually just really enjoyed hanging out with Ryan writing.
Yeah,
and especially because Ryan and my relationship was writing. So I felt this extra layer of connection with him as I wrote the book. I felt him celebrating with me and I got to kind of hang out in these scenes and these moments of us together. And so it really felt like a gift.
That's beautiful.
To sit and write with him. I didn't feel super traumatized. I mean, I had emotional moments when I was writing about Plum Springs for sure. But the moments that I got to write about him, and even just the process of writing in general, just felt so connected to him.
Yeah. And it's also there's something, in this idea of legacy and not being forgotten. We're all frightened of being forgotten deep down, I think. And by putting your story into words, by having an ISBN number on the back of it, by making sure that this book will exist in libraries or, it's out there, it's in the world, and it's your words, it's how you want him to be remembered and the stories that you want to share. There's something we get a lot of control stripped off us when we're widowed. It's quite infantilizing in a lot of ways. And I think by taking back control of the narrative, slightly cliched expression, but by doing that, you're taking control of what his legacy is, what's left behind, his story. And there's something incredibly powerful in that.
Yeah, I love that people are talking about Ryan during their
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, I do. And not just about the person that died, about who he was and how he loved as well and how he lived, because the moment of their death is in the grand scheme of things, is such a small moment. It's a cataclysmic, life-changing moment, but it's such a small part of who they were up until that point, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's felt like a gift to have people share stuff about him.
Mm.
7 years out. I mean, you don't usually get that as a widow, right? The talking stops, I feel like after year two, even, the anniversaries, everyone sharing posts and telling lots of stories. There's still a small group of people who will talk about him, but now it just feels like, oh, it's such a gift that
Yeah.
everyone's sort of like Ryan's top of mind for everybody right now.
What did I know the boys are little still, but what did they think of it? What do they think of Mum having written a book?
They are so excited about it, and I didn't think about the fact that they would be able to read by the time this was done. So
Oh gosh,
they're both like grabbing it and reading it, and I'm like, ooh, the
not
bit
that
about
chapter, darling.
the bit about the widow's fire. I was like, I didn't write this thinking you would read it. And that's interesting. I'm like,
Yeah.
my son like wants to read it, and he's so excited for me and so sweet. But I'm like, are you okay as you're reading it? Like, we need to sit and talk about this as you read each chapter and kind of process. Because I don't know why I didn't think about that. And it's not like a memoir I wrote to my kids. It's
Well,
really like a tell-all of what was going on inside of me. So I don't think most kids get that
that
deep of a
access to their
glimpse
parent,
inside.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised too. They were really, really excited for me, really proud of me. I think they saw me slog my guts out doing this, and I think there's something about showing them that you can rise up again, that you can do something. But at the book launch, one of my friend's daughters was walking around, and she's a real bookworm, this girl, and she was walking around reading the book, and I was like looking at Mum, going, "Not that chapter, not that chapter."
I know. We need a little edited, a couple pages need to be ripped down for the young
Maybe
ones. Because I've had
maybe like child version.
it's interesting when you just put all of yourself into something and you just want it to be so true. But then you see people reading it, and the introvert inside of me is like, what have I done? Like, people
What?
are reading my soul right in front of me, things I would never just share in a conversation. That's interesting.
People reach out to you, and obviously the comments about how brilliant the book is are amazing to receive. But have you had anybody who's read the book and has reevaluated perhaps the way they behaved or how they might behave in the future? I asked this because I had a message through just yesterday from somebody who'd read the book, and she apologized for pulling back from me, but she was deeply concerned about my drinking and didn't know how to kind of intervene without overstepping. And so for her, she stepped back and she said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "You don't need to say sorry. Like, I get it. I really get it. I was a mess." But the fact that somebody could reflect back, I suppose, on that time and think, "Oh, maybe I could have done that differently," I suppose is kind of part of the aim of the book in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of that, but I have had a lot of people sharing their side of
Mm.
the day he died. And that's been really interesting. Just even last night, I was talking to two friends, and they kind of told me where they were. And my mom, for the first time, told me where she was. I didn't know what she said. She said, "You know what? Can I tell you where I was that day?" She like just had read my side of the story. And she's like, "I was teaching in a class." She's a substitute teacher. And I got a call. So my friend came and picked me up, drove me home, and I had to wait to go to the airport. And I just was frozen on the front porch. And she started weeding my garden, my friend. And she just remembers that. She's like, I just remember someone like showing up immediately and doing something practical. And that I was so in shock. And my friend was weeding my plant. And I was like, I've never heard that story. So that's been really interesting to hear kind of things people don't share with
Yeah.
you. They don't think to
Because at the
share with you because
time, you were too busy with the business of grieving, right?
yeah, and they're protecting you, I think, too. And they think, oh, I don't want to burden her with how this was
Yeah.
traumatizing for me. And so that's been interesting to hear. Sort of, my other friend, she just had a newborn right after Ryan died. So she's like, I guess I have to have a baby. Like, she's like going into labor, but she was so deeply sad. So she was kind of sharing that and what that was like nursing while grieving and like the beginnings of labor. And I was like, wow, there's just so many sides in the story that I didn't know about. So that's been an interesting part of releasing this book to my world.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? How the journey that we're on, we meet people, we find out things, and by putting yourself out there, by openly talking about your story, how you get things back and you hear things. And I imagine you feel the same. I'm like an addict for information about Ben. Like, you find me a picture, find me an old story, anything you've got, I will
Same.
take it. So for me to hear anything, even little tiny snippets, and even if they are around that horrible day, it's all part of our picture, I guess.
Yes, same. I like give it all. Don't leave anything out. No
Yeah.
details left out. Yeah.
Now, one other thing I definitely want to talk to you about is this bucket list. So you found a bucket list of Ryan's that he'd written as a teenager. Is that right?
Yeah.
Tell me about this.
Yes. Okay. So that came 2 years after he died. My boys and I do this tradition on his birthday where we go through we make our own list of all of his favorite things. And he happened to be like a man child. So a lot of his favorite things are kids' favorite things to do,
Perfect.
the arcade and Legos and skateboarding. So we would do all those things. And we would also pull out his journals and all of his pictures and all that. So one year we pull it out and we find this list in one of his high school journals that says things to do before death. And it is the best list. It's so specific. Some of them are like broad, kind of typical bucket list things. Some of them are very quirky and very Ryan, like go into a public place dressed as a pirate.
I still have.
And I was like, this is such a beautiful glimpse of who he was. And I think it's especially cool because he wrote it as a young person
Yes.
and my kids are young. So it's like
Yes.
a way of connecting with him in a deeper level. So we decided every year on his birthday, we are going to check one thing off the list. And so we did the pirate thing. We've played chess in a park. We've gone to an art museum and appreciated. Like, it's such a cute list. Oh my gosh.
I'll have
And
a
so
quick
we're
look at it.
trying to get, yeah. And so there's some more like daunting things on the list, like bungee jumping that I will not be participating in. And I'm also like, let's do that when you guys are like 25. I'm not going
Yeah.
to go.
No, that's
But
not
it's,
something I would do.
yeah, it's just something. And what's really interesting is that I shared about it online and it just went viral.
Didn't you get like
Just
5 million TikTok views or something
yeah, it's like
insane?
it was like 6 million. And then the Today Show reached out and Newsweek reached out. And I was shocked because I was like, this is the week my book comes out. It just was strange timing to have people all of a
Perfect
sudden
timing.
talking about Ryan and sharing about him. And I was like, it just felt like a little like gift for Ryan
Hmm.
almost. We're like, wow, well, this is nice. Can you also mention my book? And we're like,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's been really interesting. And also, like we said, it's just nice to have people talking about him and people
Oh, and what a
moved by
gift to
his work.
find.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
find, I'd love to find something. I've got a few old, like an old school dictionary where Ben's written notes in it and things like that. And
Oh,
again, it's that need for little bits. And I love the idea that the children are getting to know their dad before he was a dad, this bit of him
right.
that they might have never got to know otherwise, I guess, because you might never have found this list. And I suppose it's a way of forming a connection where one has been snatched away. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And you all get involved, all five of you.
Yes, my
Yeah?
husband Saul also gets involved. He does the day with us. He doesn't like. He usually like comes and goes since we've had a little one because he's like he'll do the nap time or like we
Yeah.
can't bring Reese to this. So it is like an interesting. I think as the years go on, he'll be able to fully participate. But he's also wrangling the tiny one. But yeah, it's a beautiful blended family bucket list experience.
And I think for a lot of my listeners who are perhaps in the early stages of grief and they're thinking, will my life ever be joyful again? Will I find love again? Because there's still a real taboo around love after loss. There's still a stigma or an idea that you aren't grieving properly or that you leave it too long. People like to come in from both angles on this. And I think for me personally, my view is that if love comes along, you grab it, right? You grab it. And we know what love looks like. We know what it feels like. We recognize it. And I think for people who are listening to believe that there's a possibility of it and that it doesn't mean the end of everything. It means the end of everything as you knew it, but it doesn't mean the end of everything and that a beautiful life can be built around it. And so I'm going to say it, you're very strong and inspirational because you are. You are. I'm allowed to say it because I'm in the club, right? But you are. And the way you do it in such a humorous, irreverent way, I think makes it accessible because there is a lot of grief resources out there. I'm guessing that you didn't find what you needed, and that's why you came to write something because that's what happened for me. There was nothing that was quite in my lane, and I think it's the idea that we haven't lost our sense of humor. We haven't changed completely into different people. I think I'm funny. I don't know if anybody else does, but I think I am. And I'm still quite rude and, dark humoured. And I want to see that represented. I want to see myself represented. And that's what you're doing here. So thank you on behalf of the widowed community for your service, because I really would recommend this book. And actually, let's just get you to plug it for me. Can you tell people where they can find it, where they can find more information about you?
Thank you so much first for your kind word. Yes. You can find me on Instagram, Leslie Harter-Berg. You can find the book anywhere where they sell books, pretty much Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Target. It's online everywhere. Kindle. You can listen to it on
Did you record it?
Audible. I did. I'm the
Did you?
voice.
I need to do mine, but I can't afford it.
It was so. Well, you can just do it with that mic there.
Well, this is what my editor said, Dan, if you're listening, and he's going to do it for me. But apparently it's different. He did explain to me why it's different, but it is different, and the time. So it's on my list. I'm waiting to see what my sales figures are like for this month, and then I might treat myself to recording an audiobook.
Okay. It's a lot of work. I was shocked at how exhausting and long it was.
Mm-hmm.
I needed so many breaks, and I have so much respect for Jim Dale, who read Harry Potter, because he does so many voices and he kept track of it all. I just have this respect for all audiobook narrators now.
I always think this when I'm listening, like when they do all the voices. I try and do it if I'm reading the kids a bedtime story, and I just sound demented, and then I can't remember what voice I've used to which character either.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'll like give them an accent, and I'm like, what? I can't remember what accent I gave them. So they jump all around. Yes, I did the audiobooks, so you can check that out. You can also, if you are a widow, you can follow Vids for Wigs, is a nonprofit that I'm of, where we just tell widow stories. So it's widows getting interviewed, and the idea is just to help you feel less alone in that first year, especially when you just feel like you are the only one going through this. It's just so nice to hear other people's stories. This is what you're doing here. Like just the weird jokes, the dark humor, not funny thoughts. That was the only thing that helped me the first year Ryan died. Besides having just the practical help of people like Lindsay, like the only words that helped me were other widows.
Other
saying,
widows.
I get it. I get it too. This is my story. So follow Vids for Wigs for that.
Yeah, I've been following them. I was doing a little bit of just reading up on what it is. It's amazing. What an amazing thing to do. I think you should be incredibly proud of yourself. And I'm sure those 3 boys will be and are incredibly proud of their mum, because you've shown them what it means to get knocked down and get back up again. So bloody well done, you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What a lovely British compliment.
Bloody well done. I know.
Bloody well done.
Bloody well done. I actually
Wow.
would love to talk to you more, actually, because we've not really touched on my 2 pages of questions over here. But it's been a beautiful, beautiful episode. I've loved it. So if you're listening today and you have been affected by Leslie's episode, you can reach out to me and you can reach out to Leslie direct. I'm going to link all her social links in the show notes and also show you where you can find her website and buy her amazing book. But for now, it is goodbye from me. I'll be back with you next week with another story from widowhood. Thank you for listening. If you found this episode helpful, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you think someone else may benefit from this, please do share. We'd also really appreciate a quick review. It helps more people find the show. Thank you again and see you next time on Widowed AF.